Morning, dear students of Thebes School, secondary. With you, Mr. Hussein, teacher of English. Today we are having a lesson which is actually a continuation of the past one. In the last session we had the conditionals, and we already had the 4 types of conditionals. Here we are having something also related to conditionals, which is alternatives of if, or alternatives to if. Alternatives means replacements. Sometimes we can use other conjunctions instead of if. Like for example, when we say if water boils, it changes into steam, we can say when water boils, it changes into steam. So when can be an alternative to if. But here we have different alternatives. On slide number 2, we can use provided, or provided that, providing that, on condition that, and as long as to replace if in the first clauses, in the first conditional clauses. We can say, for example, I'll lend you my camera as long as you don't lose it. As long as here is a replacement of if, is an alternative to if. Provided that all the class agrees, we can adopt a panda. Provided that all the class agrees. It means if all the class agrees. So provided or providing the same. Provided that or providing that could be used instead of if. They are alternatives to if. On condition that the animal sanctuary is open, we will visit it tomorrow. On condition that, it means if. On condition that the animal sanctuary is open, it means if the animal sanctuary is open. As long as solar energy is affordable, people will use it. As long as solar energy is affordable, if solar energy is affordable. So provided that, providing that, as long as, on condition that, all those are alternatives to if. They could be used instead of if. Now with slide number 3. There is another alternative to if, which is unless. Unless means if not. Unless you study, you will fail. You will not succeed. So unless you study means if you don't study. So unless means if not. Look at the examples here. I won't be able to finish my nature project unless you help me. Unless you help me. It's also a conditional. Unless here means if not, if you don't help me. Unless you did the research means if you didn't do. Unless you did the research, you wouldn't know what sources were used. We can use otherwise or else to replace it, to replace if clause. It means if one thing isn't true or doesn't happen, something else will. For example, I say study hard or else, otherwise you will fail your exams. Study hard or else you will fail your exams. Study hard, otherwise you will fail your exams. So or else and otherwise are alternatives to if. Listen to me, otherwise you will make a mistake. Or else you will make a mistake. So otherwise and or else are also alternatives to if. Look at slide number 4. We can use supposing. Suppose, what if, imagine, assuming. In all conditional sentences, the main clause is usually a question. It means imagine or what if. For example, supposing you can go out later. Where will you go? Supposing you can go out later means if you can go out later. So supposing or suppose. Supposing you were the prime minister, what would you do? Supposing you were. Suppose you were. Assuming that Hillary invited you to her house, would you go? Assuming that Hillary invited you means if Hillary invited you. So suppose, what if, imagine, assuming. Slide number 5, but for or without are also alternatives to if. But for his help, I couldn't have done it. Without her help, I couldn't have done it. But for his help means if he hadn't helped me. Without his help, so if he hadn't helped me. But for and without should be followed by nouns or gerunds. A gerund is a verb plus ing when used as a noun, like for example, reading, writing, and so on. Traveling, all those are gerunds because they are used as noun. But for his help, here we have the noun help. It's used as a noun here. Hurry up, otherwise or else we will miss our flight. Whether he agrees or not, whether he agrees with me or not is not important to me. Whether she arrives or not, whether he comes or not, and so on. So whether or, whether you come with me or not. We have also even if. He wouldn't talk about his plans even if you begged him to. Even if. You are probably tired. Given that, you were out all day. Given that means because or since. So other alternatives of if are but for, without. Otherwise, study hard, otherwise you will fail. Whether or not, whether you come with me or not is not important. Even if I'll do the project, even if you don't help me, given that, which means since or because, you are tired, given that you were out all day. All those are alternatives of if. Look at slide number 6, inversion in conditionals. In fact, the word inversion means the change in word order. Like, for example, when we say, you can come with me, subject you and verb can or can come. This is the order of a sentence. You can come, subject and verb. But when we say, can you come with me, to change it into a question or interrogative, can you come with me? Here we have inversion. Inversion to change the order. Instead of you can, it became can you. This is the meaning of the word inversion, the change of the word order. He did he, inversion. You can sometimes omit or delete if and invert the subject and the auxiliary verb, should, were, had. For example, we say, should you require more information, contact our local representative. Should here means if you require. Should you need some help, you can contact me. Should you need. So should here means if. And we call it inversion because should came before you. Instead of saying you should, we said should you. Should you require, should you need, should you want. Where here can be used with the meaning of if. For example, were you to study more, you would get better results. Were you to study more means if you studied more. This is with the second conditional only. If you studied more, should you study more? Or were you to study? But you have to keep in mind that when you begin with where, you must include the preposition to. If he arrived late, he would be punished. If he arrived, we can say, were he to arrive? Were he to arrive? If he studied, were he to study? If he came, were he to come? You understand? If he played, were he to play? If I ate, were I to eat? Keep in mind the form, were he to arrive. Where to before the verb. It means if he arrived. Were she to come? It means if she came. Were he to study? It means if he studied. Okay? But if we don't have a verb, like for example, if he were rich, he would buy a luxurious car. If he were rich, we can say, were he rich? Were he rich? There is no to. Why? Because there is no verb. We have rich is an adjective. Were he taller, he would join the basketball team. Were he stronger, he could carry the heavy box. Were he taller, were he shorter, were he bigger, and so on. But if we have a verb, were he to arrive, were he to came. Also, we can use had, begin with had, with the third conditional. If he had arrived late, he would have been punished. It means we can say, had he arrived late. It's not a question, but it's inversion. If he had studied more, he would have passed the exams. Had he studied more, he would have passed the exams. Had he studied more, had she arrived earlier, had he played better, had he played. This is also a type of inversion. Again, with inversion, we have the verb before the noun. If he studied, we can say, should he study or were he to study? If he had arrived, had he arrived? And we complete the sentence, he would have been punished. This is the inversion. So in brief, what we cover today is the alternatives to if. Alternatives, replacements. We can use some conjunctions instead of if, like provided or provided that, providing that, like suppose, supposing, imagine, what if, otherwise, and so on. All those are alternatives. Like but for his bravery, he would have been killed. Without his bravery, he would have been killed. All those are alternatives to if. We also had the inversion, the change in the word order. Like, for example, had he arrived earlier? Should you study more? Were he to arrive? And so on. I wish you had understood the lesson well. Here we have, on slide number 7, we have evaluation. To look at the sentences here, this is an exercise. If you hadn't helped me, I wouldn't have succeeded. Begin with without. If you hadn't helped me. So we can say without, we said must be followed by a noun or a gerund. If you hadn't helped me, without your help. Help here is a noun. Or without helping me, I would have succeeded. Here we have given. You remember given that, which means since or because. You must join the computer course as it's very beneficial. So we say, you must join the computer course given that it is very beneficial. Given that because it's useful. Look at the third sentence. I don't care about your coming with me. I don't care about your coming with me. Whether, you remember, whether or not, whether you come with me or not is not important. Whether you come with me or not is not important. It's something I don't care or care about. Now, number 4, what would you do in the event of being fired from your company? Here we have assuming. Assuming. Let's say if. Assuming that you were fired from your company, what would you do? Imagine, or think, or if. Number 5, if you hadn't studied hard, you wouldn't have succeeded. But for must be joined, must be followed by a noun or a gerund. But for studying hard, you wouldn't have succeeded. Now number 5, if you hadn't, number 6, if the plant doesn't get sufficient light, enough light, it will die. So we say we need to use or. The plant must get sufficient light, or else it will die. Otherwise, it will die. Look at number 7, the last, number 7. But for your advice, I wouldn't have solved the problem. But for your advice, I wouldn't have solved. Here we have third conditional, wouldn't have solved. Begin with unless. Unless must be followed by a clause, a subject and a verb. So, unless you had advised me, and keep in mind that advise as a verb has the letter S, not C. But for your advice, unless you had advised me, and then we complete the sentence. The last one, if you take these vitamins, they can help you feel better. If you take these vitamins, use taken. If taken, these vitamins can help you. If taken means if these vitamins are taken. We have if taken, if plus past participle, because if the vitamins are the subject and the verb could be deleted if taken. Okay? I wish you had understood the lesson, and thank you very much.